this special work session to order. Don't have any really formal agenda. Just meant to be a work session to kind of continue discussing our new platform and design elements of that. Let's do it. So I had hoped that between our last regular meeting and this meeting, I'd get a chance to meet with the Tourism Authority director, but she was sick for a week, and then last week she was at a conference. That did not happen. Okay. So I don't have more in-depth details there, but actually, I mean, last time we had a work session, we actually kind of spent most of it talking about type stuff. Mm-hmm. What I would like to do today is really start thinking about how these various pieces fit together in some sort of coherent user interface.
Mm-hmm. When you say pieces, what do you mean?
Well, we've got a set of videos.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We've got a set of calendar entries. Those are our main pieces. Mm-hmm. How do they fit together? And I kind of want to think about it from the perspective of a device like this, because this is what most people ultimately will use. So, scroll, doom scroll. I know there's doom in there and scroll in there. You've got infinite length, but narrow width.
Yes.
And generally, you then stack things.
Mm-hmm.
But we've kind of got two things that are potentially equally useful, intertwined, but
mm-hmm.
not necessarily directly related.
Right.
And our current user base, because our website is about peg videos, would kind of come to something and expect that to be there.
Right.
Kind of the user group that we're trying to target is really kind of would be more future events as opposed to past events.
Right.
And therefore that calendar you would think would be front and center.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you mix and match this? One would easily say, well, you have them side by side, but then again, you think about the user form factor, and that doesn't work well.
Let me, if I may.
Yep.
Business case.
Yes.
I went to 2 events recently, both at the Lansdale. One was the Sienna Hall Bluegrass concert, Grammy Award winner, sold out. West Shore sponsored, they put out their tentacles, so, but it was sold out. It's the first event I've been to at the Lansdale that was sold out. Then on last Friday night, I went to a Tom Petty reenactment band called the Insiders. Great band, maybe a 4th sold. And I was talking to someone from the board, I was like, who I went with. Mm-hmm. I never heard, other than seeing the billboard on the side of the Ramsdale. I never, I don't listen to the radio much, but I don't think it wasn't there. I think it was on their Facebook page for the Ramsdale, but I don't go there. I only go to the Ramsdale calendar where I did see it. But just like the ability to, and he's like, and I told him about the calendar. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh man, when are you doing that? Right? Because, and so it just reinforces the need, because I've heard this from multiple people like you have as well. So clearly, for those of us not on Facebook, there is definitely a need in this community to get the word out for things like that. To go to your point about doom scrolling and like cell phone, I do see like maybe like the ability to search past events by keyword, like a tree condition, like you could search by like $25 trees or free oak trees or whatever it is, and find those meeting minutes, or that YouTube, the link to the YouTube channel. And then the other one would be search for like music events. Mm-hmm. Government, like maybe a search thing, that drop down government government, self-government, library, tree, tag, city council, things like that. And then music, beach, fishing, something. I don't know. Throwing it out there.
So as you were talking, pictures that were popping into my head, because likely at some point in your user interface, you're actually going to have a area that functions as a calendar. Now, it could be a traditional calendar, or because of the nature of some of this stuff, you just have like a week view of just things, 7 days, and you know, each day has its events type thing. But you know, something that functions, you could move forward, move back, you know, enter you know, a specific date or something like that. There's that functionality, and then for a date or a range of dates, you get a listing of the events. But what I'm thinking, so I think that's a piece, and that's a prominent piece. But what I'm thinking is kind of maybe a way of merging this stuff together is to start with just a section that is, the term just popped out of my head, basically highlighted items. So that could be the last 3 published videos, because like currently on the website, if you log in, you've got the last published video, and then below that, a scroll that is kind of in chronological order, the last videos, and then below that you can dive deeper into categories, essentially. But that top, that video snippet, that's kind of the highlighted video, it just happens to be chosen by me, the most recent. But when I actually load videos, so if I've got like 4 or 5 videos queued up to load, I'll actually load them in the order such that...
By date?
No, and not necessarily by date, because sometimes I get things in very random order. But if there's a city council meeting and 3 city commission meetings, I'll make sure to load the city council meeting last.
Right, because it's order of merit.
Because it's going to be the one that most people are going to be interested in, and by loading it last, it will get that prominent position. So I kind of know how the system works, and I basically use it to highlight what's the most important.
Right.
Now, if I've only got one, and that's the only one loaded, well, that's going to get that position today, or whatever. So I'm thinking that, the ability of basically having a section that's got 4 or 5, some number, but a reasonably small number of items that are a combination of the highlighted videos and the prominent events that are upcoming. Then scrolling down is kind of the second section being that calendar-ish thing, whatever form that takes. And then somewhere we have to get the ability to search. Now that could be lower, or there could be something at the very top that's just search. But as you were describing search, it's partly categorization. It's city of Manistee, or it's meeting, city of Manistee, city council,
right?
Or and generally you can accomplish things like that through tags that you can then put in some sort of hierarchy, so they're easily created and massaged, but yet you can provide some hierarchical structure. But you probably also have just standard keyword search and looking for something. But because I think it's more than just type in something in a little search widget, I think it probably needs a section that kind of exposes a little bit richer functionality on how you search. And that, it's kind of like, I want that first.
Right, like what the,
But I also don't want it taking up 3/4 of your screen.
Right.
And then you go to the page and it's like, what is this about? It's showing me a complicated search widget.
right, right. Welcome to the city of Manistee's public website. Here you'll find information on government, tourism, and other goings-ons. Calendar, the search at the top. If you click on it and it drops down, government, you know, whatever. And then, like, you know, government at work or something, under the calendar, latest videos.
See, I'm thinking that, you know, make a distinction. You search and you find both types of information. Because if you're searching city council and that's it, you know, seeing that there's a city council meeting coming up next week, as well as chronologically, here's the past meetings and their videos, it's kind of, in some ways, the justification we're using is, these are events, some are future, some are past, but they're all events, and we just happen to, for some past events, capture additional information like their videos.
What about if in the definition of the website where you're doing the welcome, you can also search past events. Like, so all you're seeing in the calendar are future events, and then you have to go to the other, you know, hyperlink
Right.
to search the past. Also as,
Yep.
like, so you're not
Yep.
cluttering like people's future vision.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So I'm kind of brainstorming this as I'm thinking. You, in general, seem to be not shooting me down, which is good.
Well, that comes next.
That's fine. I mean, that's part of the brainstorming process.
Yeah.
Is, you know, no, I think you're missing something, or no, I disagree. Please do.
Like the search past, would you have, like, obviously you need to have the ability to search past government events, but would you have the ability to search past Easter egg hunts or beach concerts? Or is that not?
I don't see that unless there's additional information that we have around that event, I don't think it has value to clutter up the
Yeah.
system that this happened on such and such a date. But limit the past to basically being things that we have additional information.
Right, or.
Now, you know, that right now is the only thing we capture is the video. I love it if we've talked about generating shorts and,
Yeah.
you know, transcripts and other things, you know, archiving the meeting agendas and minutes and all of those things.
They could be linked.
Yeah, I mean, a link is still, you know, it still is content. It
Yeah.
just, you know, takes you somewhere else potentially. But I guess to answer your question, unless there is something additional that we're doing for an event that has occurred, I think it goes away at that point.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, no one wants to read about, well, I'm sure, like, some people would, but what was the past band show events
Right.
last year? That's, just go to the future one and then contact the organization.
I mean, again, you can stretch
Yeah,
and think of like, well, maybe someone might want to know because they're researching something, but I think that use case is so remote, but it clutters search results potentially with a bunch of things that are really no value.
I agree. So welcome to the city of Manistee, whatever the site's called. Here you can find information about government, tourism, you know, woods and water, whatever it is, whatever that description is. Search on the calendar below to find past events from, you know, whatever other word, municipal government. Please search here. And it would be separated out so that, like right below that would be the calendar, where you would have a drop down with the categories.
Right.
Tourism, government, whatever, how you break out tourism, there's lots of ways to break it out. And then search by date, do it like the searchable by date, category, click on it, there's your 5 events for the month of May. Oh, I want to go to yoga at the Armory, click that, it takes you to like the 5 W's, and then a back button to go back to the search that you were just on.
Right.
And then another back button to go back to the, or like a home button to go back to the splash
Wow.
page.
What you're describing is more of a desktop UI than a phone UI,
Right.
but, you know.
We should pull one up. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
However, it scales to the
Right,
cellular.
right. So, so here's what I'm thinking is basically mock something up for our next, probably our next regular meeting. Even if it is ugly in nature, and no functionality, but just kind of something that you can kind of look at and kind of
So
see some of the concepts we're talking about, to then start moving forward from there.
Okay.
So, do you have any web design?
I managed contractors that did it. But I mean, I mocked them up in PowerPoint, like when I would give my PWS to the contractors,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, this is the functionality I want. And like in PowerPoint, you can do the URLs that take you back to the slides.
Right.
But I'm sure that that's antiquated, right? So I'm sure that there's probably, you know, places where you can, yeah, I can do it.
Well, what I was going to suggest is I already have a sample website that has no content for this.
Okay.
But I'll set up a terribly rough concept. I'll share that login with you,
Okay.
and I'll give you a little bit of instruction as to, because I'm gonna recommend that we use a specific web development platform, and I think there would be an annual cost to it, like probably $100 for that license. But it's what the company I work with, Right Side Design, they use for all of their sites, so I'm familiar with how it works. And it has that visual graphic
Okay.
editor that you can just, so.
Does it have a button like click for what it would look like on a cell phone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm thinking that is, just start putting,
Yeah.
throwing something together because.
And even make a couple versions or something, if it's easy enough to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Could you do it by this weekend?
Yeah.
Okay, that would, because I'll have some bandwidth over the weekend.
Okay, okay.
To do something like that. Good deal. Let's move out. I like that. So, to back review,
Yes.
a user interface that has a general description at the top of welcome. Here's what you can do on this site. Then you go to a searchable, but in that description, you can also search past events, government events. Here, gives you a separate search, right? Like a separate page probably, or loads another page,
Um,
or is down below?
I think it's down below and it
Okay.
just jumps you to that section
Okay.
down below.
Like a recipe website, jump here to find past government events. Otherwise, right after the description of the website, you're met with a search bar with the regular like categorization searches by topic, and then the calendar like between these dates.
I had my highlights, highlighted video,
Right.
highlighted.
Do you think that like, well, from me, from a non-interested in the government perspective, I'm not saying I am, right, but like, I see more people using the site that care about what's happening in June than,
But that's why I'm suggesting it has a mix of those.
Okay.
So one or two videos, or maybe just the most recent video like today, 2 or 3.
would it be the
featured-
title of the title of the meeting, or would it be like a video?
I think it's like an image, because when we looked 2 times ago at some of the calendar examples, pretty much every calendar site has at the top kind of highlighted events and then their calendar widget. So I'm just thinking of reusing that space that's highlighted and throw a video in there, because that's all the aspects of it.
Would you want the search past events above the future events calendar?
Don't know. As you said,
Yeah.
try a couple different things and see what makes sense.
Okay.
Because I find it's hard without seeing or interacting with something. Because we can be using the same words, but the pictures in our mind can be completely different. And sometimes that's substantial.
Did you ever watch Spinal Tap?
No, I haven't, but
You should watch it. They commission a set design for Stonehenge, and then they bring it to them, and it's like a diorama. And no, that was what they built for them, was this little teeny thing, where they were expecting this massive set. So to your point, yes, I understand. Okay. All right.
anything else that we should?
What about like, just in concept, the idea of like phasing, right? Are you shooting for like the government, public first, and then like to include the tourism, and then start to expand it to like area nonprofits, and then like third phase would be like, other business events, like the Hampton Inn is having some kind of beach thing, or the casinos.
I mean,
the casinos having some
roughly, yes.
three phases maybe, as things
Because
sort out.
the first is basically taking what we have today, city meetings, Filer, Manistee, and basically getting those meetings into the calendar and the videos associated with that. And that basically is the current functionality of our current website. Plus, because the current one doesn't, it historically had a calendar, but hasn't for probably 10 years. Then, assuming we can get the tourism authority engaged, bringing that content in, and that's, I would say, the majority of what people really are looking for. Then that next level is basically, in some ways, improving upon what the tourism authority already does, because they're just trying to put together a calendar. They're not hosting any of the events. They need that input, and getting that knowledge out there of people who are doing things. This is where you go, and if you do it here, it will get to the tourism authority.
Okay, I wrote down 4 phases: government, which you already have; other government, which we don't have,
Well,
like the library, and
oh, yes.
like other county government
But
area.
I would divide that into, let's take the library. The library hosts events for the public, as well as has meetings.
Okay.
They're governed government side versus
And
their
a public side.
their public side. So they kind of fall into multiple of those categories.
Okay. All right.
But in a lot of ways, we can plan out phases.
Yeah.
But it requires partners who actually want to engage with us.
Right.
So we may find willing partners in categories that are later, but would like to work with us, and it's like, we'd be foolish to say no. We don't have anyone else jumping at the bit.
Especially
because-
if you start having like user stats on what
Yep.
you have so far with out there content on it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's already 400 unique views a week on
Right.
just the government stuff.
Right.
So that gives us some incentive. Thinking of it, like, did you ever envision the entities that start to contribute no longer doing their own separate calendar?
Part of that is going to be technology based, and part of it is going to be sense of ownership based.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, no one wants to enter information twice.
Mm-hmm.
So single sourcing it is ideal, but how that can work. Let's take the city's website. I think that last website was about a $40,000 item, and a lot of it is it's managing files, the agendas, minutes, stuff. But a lot of it is around that calendar, and then static pages and other things. How much functionality is built into that calendar that's on there would dictate, probably it can't be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
All right.
most calendars have capability of syncing with kind of some of the mass public calendars out there, like Google Calendars or et cetera.
Mhm.
So, the ability to we can publish to Google, you can pull from Google, so this intermediary is set up, and that's how data goes back and forth. So there are ways to do that, but in some ways that can be on a case-by-case basis. But something like the city, which has got a calendar that's it's actually got quite a few things on it, because there's a lot of things just within city government that are going on all the time. That's a different beast from a nonprofit that's doing an event or 3 events a year.
Mm-hmm.
Versus the library. The library's also got a calendar. So there's, I'd say probably a dozen that I'm aware of out there that are fairly sophisticated calendars that have quite a lot of things within their communities that would have to have active engagement to figure out how and what. And the rest, I think, are in the realm that even if you had to double enter them, that would not be a big deal.
Yeah, right, it's just a couple events. Does the city have a requirement to have their archive searchable back to a certain date?
That would probably be, at some point, we're probably going to want to put together a meeting with Ed Bradford, and just kind of, because he's...
And like you'd have like a caveat, like for events going back past 2016, contact this number. Yeah. Okay. So next steps are you're gonna create an instance for me.
I already have it, they just need to make some tweaks to it, too.
What's it called, just so I can look at it, if you remember?
Off the top of my head, I do not remember. I will get that. I guess it was here.
All right. Sounds good.
Anything else for tonight?
No?
And it's 6:34.
Sounds good. Do I provide minutes for this?
Um,
meeting? I mean, I can't.
I would, yeah.